Because it finished Ipswich 0, Bolton 0. We will test that arrow on the barometer as to whether Hurst is on his way, staying, coming or going. I don't know myself. Ben Bloom is from the Blue Mondays podcast. Hiya, Ben.
Hi, Caroline.
If you stick your arms in the air, are you pointing towards the exit door or welcoming Mr. Hurst back in at the moment?
Oh, I'm gonna keep them by my sides and abstain from any kind of comments like that. But,
well done, Mr. Politician.
It's not going very well, is it, Caroline?
What's happened? Because we're clearly not there with our season tickets watching them every week.
What's happened was that the previous regime ended at the end of last year, and then there was a far, far bigger turnover of personnel than anybody expected. We expected maybe one or two would go out, as that's how the club has been run since Marcus Evans has been owner, and maybe one or two would come in and we would possibly be slightly weaker. What transpired was Webster goes to Bristol City, Waghorn goes to Derby, Garner goes to Wigan, Selina goes back to Man City, Carter Vickers goes back to Tottenham, Connolly goes back to Everton, and the team that finished the Bolton game, two of them were here last season. So it's just been such a big change of manager, change of backroom staff, even the goalkeeping coach went, and so many new players, and they haven't gelled yet, unfortunately.
Ben, on the players that have come in, a lot from lower levels, which ones have adapted to life in the Championship?
Gwion Edwards on the right or left wing from Peterborough, he's been really good. With the rest of them, Caden Jackson from Accrington, the last two games has looked like with his pace he can be a bit of a weapon. Everybody else, it's settling. Well, actually, Pennington's come on loan from Everton and he played with Leeds last season, so he's fine. But yeah, everybody else is acclimatised, and obviously Eden and Nsiala have both had red cards as well. So Edwards is the standout, and bits and bobs from everybody else, Sam.
Yeah, it was unusual recruitment, wasn't it, Ben, in terms of if he looked below the Championship in terms of for players that he knew from Leagues One and Leagues Two. Would you say that the current team are a bit green, a bit raw? Because even when you have sort of taken the lead in games, you haven't ended up winning those. You've thrown away leads. Is there an element of rawness among that group?
The evidence would say yes. It's really strange because the first month or so, I was able to make sensible excuses without sounding like a fool for Ipswich not winning. But the past couple of games, that's not been the case. And just a very strange thing with Białkowski, the keeper, who's 3 times Player of the Year, came back from the World Cup and was in poor form, and then was kind of shockingly dropped before the local derby against Norwich. Just a lot of strange goings on that a few wins would probably settle, I would have thought.
There's a number of the clubs in the Championship that we've spoken about when they get that first win, how they push on. The problem for you lot is you're away to Birmingham next, who have just had that win. Yeah,
and Birmingham are very solid as well. They only just won their first game recently, but they haven't lost many at all. And then after that, Middlesbrough, who never concede any goals, and Swansea, who are very similar to Birmingham in that they're not winning very much. And then, Caroline, you could be 12 games in with a nice threatening 2-week international break and no wins, which might give the owner twitchy fingers. Who knows?
No, but that's manager.
Yeah, well, but that's not the Ipswich way, though, is it? I was looking at your past 17 permanent managers in 82-year professional history. The previous 16 have had an average of 233 games each. He's not normally that trigger happy, is he?
No, and that's something we're very proud of. But Evans has been here 10 years now and hired 4 managers. Keane was a disaster. Jewell was a disaster. McCarthy cleared up the mess and had one good season, but then we've regressed. Some would say, what is the common denominator? It might not be the managers. But yes, we're proud of giving managers time. But one would have to admit, if something is really, really not working, then, you know, a change can be the right thing to do. A lot of people hedge their bets and say, no, you shouldn't change managers quickly. But sometimes it can be the right thing.
But Ben, we sat here and talked about the style of play under Mick McCarthy an awful lot last year. I mean, what football is it that you're observing at the moment? Has it changed? Is it good?
I would have said I went to the first pre-season friendlies and the fullbacks were forward, the defenders were splitting up, we were passing it short, all this high press and fitness, and I'm all excited and I think this is going to be great. And unfortunately, on our podcast, we said if you'd have covered up the dugout at the Bolton game and you had to guess who the manager was, you might not have been able to tell the difference between some Hurst football and some McCarthy football. Look, the time was right for McCarthy to go. When he and Evans had the conversation, it didn't even get to, do you want a new contract? It was, look, let's part. But I can't sit here and say all those of us who said we want better football, we want more entertainment, are getting it yet.
I know that McCarthy still loves the club as well, so they ended on good terms. Ben, we're going to end on good terms now. Get rid of him. I don't mean it. Ben Bloom, love the podcast. Thank you for coming on.
Brutal, Caroline. See ya.
Love you too. Ben Bloom from the Blue Mondays podcast. Yeah, whether he'll be trigger happy or not, I think you've got to give Hurst a little bit longer to try and sort things out.
Sorry, you wanted me to defend him during the interview there. I'll defend him now. Oh, absolutely. You've got to give him a little bit more time. But I thought when we spoke about it in the summer, if they were expecting a completely revitalised Ipswich new brand of football, they weren't going to get that under Hurst. You know, Hurst was a really good manager last year at Shrewsbury, did an unbelievable job, but it was all about hard work, togetherness, and it was a real team, Shrewsbury. So, yeah, I envisage that's what Ipswich are going to become, but it's not going to be tick-a-tack football. So that was really interesting. I thought he was very, very eloquent in his delivery.
And very honest as well. I just feel sorry for Ipswich fans.
Very quickly, we'll rattle through these. Thank you to everyone for their questions.